God of the universe, maker of the stars, who am I that you would know my name?
Welcome to Life on Purpose, episode number 44. And since it's Labor Day, we decided to labor, and that is to produce a program tonight. And going around the computer screen here is Ryan Cribbs, Daniel Clayton, and if the Energizer Bunny became messianic, David Covert, and myself, Mike Clayton. Guys, welcome. And at least for three of us, we're looking forward to working together in person. The only thing I can't remember is where is it? Right, Ryan, David, where are we going to?
Where was it? I think it's like south of Chattanooga, Rossville.
Rossville,
yep.
Yeah, Rossville. Okay.
Battlefield Congregation.
Okay. Well, you guys have been
That
there
sounds
before.
cool.
I haven't.
We have.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Nice little community. Very nice.
Good.
Are you
Been
pulling
there
up the
once.
address, Dave? Or
Yeah, I actually just had it just a second, and it just there it is. It's 195 Ashley Lane, Rossville, Georgia, 30741.
Schedule is on the internet. I'll be
Yes.
speaking Friday night. Rico Cortez will be there speaking. I'll be speaking on Saturday morning, and Rico Cortez will be there Saturday afternoon, as I'm going to come back and spend some time with our congregation. Also, I think we got this obscure band, Exodus Trail,
Yeah.
Exodus what? Exodus broke down
Exodus
the side of the
Road
road
Band,
band.
I
What
think.
is
It
it?
was the Leviticus Path Group.
yes,
Ah.
yes. Exodus Roadkill.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's another band that they've been around.
That's funny.
Man, how long ago was it we played with that band there, Ryan? I think it was a long time ago, and now they're joining us for this round.
Exactly.
Yeah, you might have
Yes.
heard of Mishkanim. maybe.
Mishkalim.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Howie and
You might have
Aileen.
heard of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
That'll
it's
That'll be a good time.
I'm looking forward to it because I have not worked with Howie and Aileen for over 10 years. And she doesn't really know this, but Aileen has one of my favorite songs of all times about Jerusalem. Now, I know that Exodus Road Band has a really good one also, but sometimes I just need to hear her song. It's an amazing song that they have written. So I'm looking forward to being with them, and I'm going to probably request that just to since they're there. All right.
knowing
so,
them, they probably would oblige you.
yeah,
They probably will.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. All right. Well, let's get going with this program. And Ryan, a couple of weeks ago, our last program, you said something about living life looking through the lens of God. I got a question for you.
Yes.
What in the world were you thinking?
Sometimes things come out of thin air, Mike. And so I can't even tell you what the catalyst of that one was. It's funny that you should bring up lenses. My wife just recently ordered a new pair of glasses, and they got the prescription for one of the lenses right, but the other lens they got completely wrong.
Oh,
And so she just received those and was very disappointed to find that she couldn't see anything, though she had it half correct.
wow.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Who's going to run with that one?
Oh, goodness gracious.
Sorry, guys.
I was about to say, like, there's so much good stuff there.
Seriously. Oh, man.
Anybody?
Anyone? Anyone? I mean, I don't know. It's like it's so simple. It's such a simple concept that you just laid out, but it's so deep, it's so true. And I hope that part of the silence that we're experiencing right now is like, what am I walking through life only seeing half the truth and not being able to see, or seeing only really perceiving half of what is in front of me? Or oh man,
Okay, let me throw something in here to run with. In the book of Yaakov or James, it talks about a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. What about a double-visioned man?
Double vision man. Would that be a man who is maybe seeking the vision of God for his own life, but is constantly being pulled astray by his own vision?
Okay.
By what he sees in front of him, perhaps? By perhaps the impossibilities that may make themselves known in his path, that in the flesh he sees. I'm talking to myself here, even so many times, even recently, I've been like, "Oh, this situation is impossible," and then within 24 hours, it has developed into the most possible and easy to obtain thing or item or whatever it is, and it's just like watching the Father move. And I've had to go back and repent and be like, all right, I should have had more faith than that.
Yeah, I'd say I like the double vision. I feel like those two things are probably pretty similar. You could put them in the same context, double vision, double-minded, because both would make you unstable. If you have, two visions in front of you, whether that's a literal vision like you're talking about, Ryan, it's going to make you unstable. It's going to throw your perception, your depth perception off, and you're just going to be really hindered in your movements even. But also just as far as like a conceptual thing, like if you have, I'm sure there's at least a dozen proverbs that would say something about this, about, not being sure of yourself. I know one proverb, I can't remember where it is, but it says to act without knowing how you function is not good.
Oh yeah.
And so you could almost apply that in a similar way, where if you start acting, but you have not laid out your clear vision, you have not put on the proper lens to walk forward with that, then you are going to be unstable. It is going to be not good because you're acting before you should act.
I think I want to jump in with the idea that you have double vision, right? It's a vision that's obscure because there's literally two things happening. I mean, I think as kids we're always told don't cross your eyes, they're going to get stuck that way, right? And you'll end up seeing double once you're crossing it. You're looking over your nose, right?
But that's
and
what's wrong with it.
There you go. And you get fascinated with that idea as a kid, but then that fear of, oh gosh, maybe I'm looking wrong. That's kind of an interesting idea that in my mind, when you said the double vision thing, I immediately thought of like two masters. The idea of like you have a vision, that means there's something that's in charge of that vision usually, right? But then if we have double, if we're seeing double, that means there's two. That means there's two things going on. And just like you said, Daniel, by definition, it's unstable. You're going to try walking cross-eyed. And send us a video when you do that. Try doing that.
onpurpose@mail.com, please do.
Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. I think, so like doing that, that's not I would not advise that. That would probably be, you're probably going to get hurt. Hurt.
I remember, man, this is going back a ways. And when I was still in public school, which I know I just offended probably half our crowd there. Yes, I did. No, I was in public school. I had a great public school, honestly, in Arizona. But I remember they brought in some of the DARE people, that organization that caters to younger people, essentially teaching them the negative effects of drugs and alcohol, that kind of thing. And I remember specifically, for some reason, this stuck with me, but they said that as you start drinking more and more, or as you are under the influence of drugs, it creates a false sense of security. Meaning you're not going to be able to tell yourself when you're in that altered state of mind that you're not fit to drive. You're not going to have the wherewithal and the wisdom to say, I shouldn't drive right now. It's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine. I can drive. I can do this. And that's probably what we do in a similar way in our spiritual walk, in our all that kind of stuff, where we have, maybe if we close one eye, we can see perfectly with this eye, and that creates this false sense of security that we're kind of good to go. Like we are seeing things clearly because we've shut one eye. We've shut off part of what we need to understand. We haven't gone through that process of wisdom and understanding and knowledge to be able to proceed correctly, and just have like that that blockage over our eye. Something.
So what about, okay, you know, we're talking about this thing with glasses. I've worn glasses most of my life. When I started with I did not even know I had astigmatism until I started working air traffic control, and they said, you know, you can't see exactly. So what it does is it affects a lot of things. And Ryan, as a shooter, you understand this very well of which eye is your dominant eye. Okay, and most people that are right-handed, you're right eye dominant. Because I have astigmatism in my right eye, I am left eye dominant, which means I have to do some. If I'm out on the range with you, I have to do some adjusting.
Yeah, you have to get funky with it when it comes to rifles.
Yeah, well, is rifle with a pistol, anything that I do, I have to adjust because of that. And so understanding that we have some vision problems in this world can cause us to be able to overcome those vision problems.
Yes.
I have to do that playing golf. I wear bifocals, and you know, so I've got a distant and a near. And if I'm trying to hit a ball to a distance, and I've got, you know, these bifocals on, it's terrible because you're sitting all like this the whole time, and you look really funny. So I have single vision glasses that I wear just for that. And so all these are things that we could look at in our own life to consider that if we're not seeing properly, if we're even to the point that we can recognize some of the defects. Maybe my childhood gave me some vision defects. I may have been raised by somebody that continued to tell me all the time that I was worthless, that I'd never make anything in my life, that you're ugly, or you're too short, you're too tall, you're too whatever it is. And those things affect our vision. But until I look at that and go, wait a minute, let me see this for what it is. And I can't take that away from what happened in my life, but I can adjust so that I can overcome it and see clearly to get to my target. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. So
Yeah, it
real
does.
fast, you saying that it triggered something in my mind actually. A couple things. One was for us that are husbands, we are seeing with our perspective, our view, but our wife could be considered to be our second eye. That if we're not actually seeking her perspective on a matter, we're only seeing it from our perspective, we're literally walking around with a patch, or a blinder over one eye. And I'll give you a for instance that happened to me recently that I was so thankful for my wife's perspective. So I was hosting a class recently. I won't go into the details, but it required us to have a piece of property. And so we had arranged with a gentleman to use their piece of property for this class. And this was months in advance of the class. And then several days just before the class was to be, something came up. I guess that individual didn't write down or understand the dates. And basically, like just days before the class, that necessary piece of land was now no longer available to us. Like literally like 48 hours before the class. And so of course I was very upset because I had people traveling from all over the Southeast in order to attend this course that I was facilitating. And I began to take a very negative perception toward this individual. And so I came home that evening and I was talking with my wife and I asked her, I said, what is I said, you've kind of been on the outside watching everything happen, if you will. What's your perception of this? And she made me realize that some of my communication, some of my perception toward this individual was lacking or was quite harsh.
Mm.
And it actually it brought me to a place of repentance, because I had only seen it from my point of view. I had not seen it from
Wow.
what perhaps he could be seeing, or what he and his family might be going through, and this kind of thing. And so it worked out, and we were able to somewhat reconcile, and he also was able to attend the last day of the course
Oh,
himself.
good.
But there, like, had I not gone to her,
Mhm.
really trying to build her up here as well, I would not have seen. I would have been just like her glasses. I would have been seeing out of only one lens and not the other,
Not getting the full
Mhm.
picture.
and probably could have done irreparable damage to a relationship had I not taken her advice.
Wow.
Mhm. And I was just going to say, I think this is such a good picture of, where it talks in scripture about the body of Messiah, because
Mhm.
it just goes to show how much we need each other. Because any one of us left to ourselves are going to be lacking in perspective and probably more cynical as we, grow more experienced in life. And so, Dad, I was going to say, with what you said, that really ties together kind of our opening thought of viewing things from God's lens, because you're talking about these things that could happen to you when you're younger, or these things that just kind of you carry that affect your vision of the world.
Mhm.
And from our perspective, we can see that as a bad thing. And it does hinder our vision up until we hand it to God to for him to meet us halfway there, and to say, hey, I know that happened to you, but it's not who you are, and it doesn't affect you moving forward. Now let me turn this into a testimony for everyone else that's struggling with the same thing. And that's
Wow.
when the shift happens, is when you take your situation, you hand it to God, and then he hands it back to you with a different lens, so that you can then operate in the world in a different way. And Ryan, just with what you're saying, I think it's so important that in a marriage, in a friendship, in anything, it's very important that we do not approach friendships in a general sense, or relationships, from the idea that we need to change the other person, that we are
Mhm.
right and they are wrong, and we need to affect what they're saying. Because if we do that, then we are going to limit the exact thing that you're talking about. We're going to become stubborn in our own ways and
Mhm.
not want to change them. And we're not going to be able to see our shortcomings where we're wrong. And you're just not going to be able to operate in the fullness of that marriage, or the fullness of that friendship, or
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Right.
I wanted to throw like that whole idea, like we're talking about, like that one perspective, and how you're saying, Ryan, you like we're looking at this with essentially half vision. That's a lot of times we look at a lot of things like that. And I would like to then offer that sometimes let's add another thing to that analogy. Like if you've ever been up on top of a mountain peak or in a city, and they have those like binocular things at the top, right? Where you could throw in a couple quarters and you could see things with great detail. I think a lot of times we get so focused on whether it's an issue, on whether it's something, we stay so focused, we forget the big pictures because we're so focused on a detail. We get so focused on one thing. Or if we're going to compare it to shooting, you stare down the scope with just one eye open, and you're just looking through that
Mhm.
scope. You have no idea what else is happening
Mhm.
downfield of that range. If we look at that, that's the same idea. And I think a lot of times we can get so focused on how we perceive a matter to be that we have to take what I like to tell people, that 30,000 view level. Let's back up. Let's back up. Let's stop. It's valid. You're what you're feeling. Fine. Let's take a big step back. It's just a recent thing that we've been able to look at, where we can up in satellites up in space that they could see from a whole world perspective down to they could see the numbers on your mailbox with a satellite, right? Like it's just recent technology that we're able to do something as crazy as that. But God's been doing that the entire time. He could see the big picture all the way down to the very minute detail. And sometimes we have to get out of those binoculars and go, wait, there might be something else going on here. Let me try to detect my emotions in this situation just to see big picture what's happening here. So And I'm glad you're able to remedy that, because I got to be a part of it and see how that happened for you. And that was really
Yes.
neat. So again, it was all God thing. And again, it's so amazing just to lean on your friend, or really your best friend, your wife is what I hope to be. Your best friend's your wife, and she's able to say, hey, check yourself here. And like what you said, Daniel, that whole idea of don't come into thinking that you're going to be the one changing people, or that you're the best one in this, essentially in a relationship. There's always something to learn. There's always something to see from somebody else's perspective, because it's different for them. Always should value that. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah.
So if he sees, and you guys were Revive, we did the thing with the parade, that he sees to the Almighty, there is no past and future, everything is present. And spoiler alert, we're probably going to be doing that at in Georgia. So just get ready.
Awesome.
But well, hopefully the adults will be able to understand it too. So we'll just talk to the youth, and maybe the adults can catch it.
Well, I mean, if you got big balloon, then that kind of
Yeah, I
helps.
know. Yeah, don't go give everything away there, David. I might catch you with a punching bag.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: is if we're going to see from through his lens and his perspective, what I'm hearing everybody say is that he's going to use other people to help us do that.
Yes.
Once again, the theme of
Yeah.
shooting here, where'd that come from? A good sniper has a spotter.
Yes.
Okay. And a good sniper also is only on the scope for a limited amount of time and then switches off. And so in order
Yes.
to get something done, you need somebody else that is here. So we're talking about like in our own lives, what you're talking about, Ryan. Let me give you a perspective. There's things that I know about me that you know about me. There's things that I know about me that you don't know about me. There's things that you know about me that I don't know about me. So when we come together, it's going to be the Father that is allowing us to see ourselves, maybe in a light that we can't see ourselves if left just to ourselves.
Yes.
So I in looking through the scope, I need a spotter. And it may be that David's called alongside of me to be my spotter, so I can see some things, instead of just, as you were talking about, David, getting that tunnel vision into something and missing the perspective of what's going on around me in my life.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a reason Yeshua sent them out in twos.
Oh,
They needed each other,
Yeah.
and he probably sent out. I imagine that the way he paired them up was probably not anything close to what any of the 12 would have chosen.
Right.
Exactly.
It was probably like way different, because Yeshua knew each and every one of them and exactly what they needed and exactly what would make them the most effective. Because if he sent two people that got along really well and they had a lot of similarities, then he might as well just sent one in that way.
Right.
But to send two, and to kind of shift gears here a little bit, we're talking about God's perspective.
Yeah.
And so this is a really practical issue, I think, of learning. Like we could do a class on this, learning how to see things from God's point of view, because that is something that affects every single day of your life.
Yeah.
If we could learn how to see things from God's point of view, it would change our lives and how we live and how we function, how we speak, how we do everything in our lives. And where this becomes really apparent is when things get hard, when we have a bad day, when we have a bad week or bad month, or something bad happens. That is when it's the most necessary to have God's perspective. And one of the greatest pictures that I have heard a friend of mine say is, we talk about the mountaintops and the valleys of our lives. The mountaintops being like the really good experiences, just on this really good high, and then the valleys being, the tough times in the dark places. But he said, if you think about it, when you're on that mountaintop, you're not just seeing other mountains. you're seeing the entire lay of the land in front of you. You're seeing the other peaks and you're seeing the trees and you're seeing the valleys. And when you're on that mountaintop, everything about what you're seeing is beautiful, including the valleys.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you start trekking down from that mountaintop and you get into those valleys, you are at the place that you just saw from the mountain. And that's God's perspective, is that it's all beautiful. And I think that there's two really important questions to ask ourselves in trying to learn how to see through God's perspective. Number one is, do we believe truly that he is good? And number two, do we truly believe that he's good to us?
Wow.
Those are two very different questions.
Mhm.
Yes, they are.
I like what you did there.
Mhm.
It just came to me about 2 minutes ago. So
Yeah.
Because one implies the understanding that it's like, okay, I know God is good, but life really sucks right now, and so it's just not been good to me. And the other is that God is doing that, though it may not be good right now, because it is good for you, because he is good to you.
Okay.
I've got, how many fingers pointing back at me right
Yeah.
now, but
yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. That's where I'm at too. I'm trying to I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people. They'll either talk about the valleys, talk about the mountains, and sometimes it's like, sometimes you just need a perspective change. And then there's that piece that can follow from just understanding that, you know what, this isn't gonna last forever. This is gonna go away. There's something to be learned here. And it's hard in the middle of it, right? Like we say that right now, but then like that, whenever that comes, heaven forbid it happens to you guys again. I don't wish that for anybody, but hard times come. In the middle of it, you do not want to hear someone say, hey, there's something good happening here. But guess what? There's something in the middle of all that, but you just can't see it. Again, tunnel vision. There's especially when it's bad. I know I get tunnel vision when it gets rough. I understand that. And thankfully there's those God moments where he goes, hey, let me take you back up to that mountain again. Do you see the path is,
And
there's a direction here and you're on it. You're ahead. You were back there. Now you're here going up to the next mountain. It's gonna be tough, but keep going.
And the most important word to remember
Oh,
to remember is remember. Like that one word, remember. Just take that moment and think back on all the times that he has brought you through all sorts of things. Remember is the word to think about when you're in the middle of those things.
Maybe what we get tripped up with is the word good. Because in English, okay, a piece of cake is good, and your child's being good, and whatever. It's kind of a word that goes to everything. In Hebrew, the word is tov, and it's more of a word of completeness. So we go to Genesis, and God saw it, and it was good. The word is that it had its complete purpose. So it was like, life on purpose kind of thing. So the word good is maybe where we're tripping up, and we know that God is good. Okay. I mean, I do. I know he is complete, but what about us? I'll take you back to, this is a long time ago. This is ancient history. It was 1987. We were in, myself and Kathy, along with our daughter, just one daughter at the time. I went to a conference with Pastor Roger Barrier of Casas Adobes Baptist Church, Tucson, Arizona. Pastor Barrier has passed away since, but I'll never forget him teaching on the words of Romans 8:28. And I've heard these words spoken when I've, as a pastor, have been in an intensive care room all night long with a family, and somebody walks in and go, well, praise God, all things work together for good to those that love God and are called according to his purpose. Amen. And the family's going, shut up. Because those words, you're going through something. You don't just want somebody to tell you, hey, all things work together for good. And Pastor Barrier was, in his great wisdom of expounding on the scripture, he said, you can't understand verse 28 unless you've read verse 29. Novel thing to do. Verse 29 says, for whom he did foreknow, he did predestine to be conformed into the image of his son, Yeshua the Messiah. So how do we define the word good in verse 28? Is that he brings things into our lives that would conform us into the image that he created us to be. And that, gentlemen, means it's good. Doesn't mean that it's comfortable, but it means it's good, because he's seeing through his lens at my destiny, not at my present circumstance.
Yeah. And example of this, there's a guy we're working for right now. I talk about him a lot because he's been a God ordained figure in me and my business partner's life in this past couple months. Just really, God ordained this meeting to happen with him. But he's taught us a lot. He's 82. He's an engineer. He has been involved in ministries to various forms, including prison ministry for almost his entire life. And one thing he was telling us the other day is, because he's had this issue with a plumber not showing up, calling the plumber, hey, when you come in, yeah, I'm coming, doesn't come. Yeah, I'm coming, doesn't come, that kind of thing. And so just really frustrating. You got this project going on and you have someone that says they're going to be there and they're just not there over and over and over again. And so my business partner asked him again the other day, he's like, hey, did you hear anything on the plumber? Just kind of inquisitive asking. And he said, no, but he just goes in and starts talking about how, we really have to believe that God ordains everything. And there's a difference between ordaining and micromanaging. God does not micromanage our choices to where he just makes us choose things. There's still the free will, but he ordains things to happen. Just like in the life of Job, he ordained that suffering to bring about his glory. He ordains things that we don't understand, even if he's not micromanaging them. And so he said, listen, God ordained for me to cross paths with this plumber. I didn't choose for that to happen. I didn't choose for us to meet. God brought us together. And as much as it is up to me, why would I separate what God has brought together? And he says, I don't know what God might call me to in his life, what things I could speak into his life into. I have no idea why he's in my life. But as much as I can help it, I'm not going to kick him out just because I'm frustrated. And it's such an important thing, because there's stuff like that happens to every single one of us almost every single day. Something that we could say like, well, why on earth does this not just happen? Or does this person not just follow through, and all these things? But to step back and say, God ordained this for some reason. I don't know what it is, but I believe him and I believe he's good. And we were able to just really hone in on this like the next day, because we had to go fix something that we had done maybe a month prior. Some things that a different worker was accusing us of doing things wrongly. It wasn't our fault, but we were like, what, it's not a big deal. Let's just go fix it. But this thing, had we not been blamed for something that wasn't our fault, and it was so cool because God was able to like give us this image in the moment where they're working for free. It's not always very fun to do that. But one of us made a comment, and all of a sudden we both got this vision, like God has ordained this to happen so that we could learn from this experience, because he has a place that he's taking us to that we need to know what we just learned here.
Thanks, Daniel. You just cost me $10. I'll explain it to you later. Oh, I messed up today. Oh, yeah. I'll tell you later.
About to say, after hearing what Daniel just said, that was some foundational stuff, because I can't tell you how many times like as Daniel was talking about that, I was like, good Lord. Yeah, that time, that time, that time. Oh, oh man, that's some introspection right there. That there's definitely some times you can
Mhm.
see where that's, and then or wanting to pick up the phone to cancel, wanting to say you don't even show up. I can't even believe
Mhm.
how unprofessional this is. That's the day they
Mhm.
show up and something unbelievable happens, and you go, "How the heck did that just happen? There's no way. How? What was going on there?" Right? I'm being super general, but I've seen it way too many times. And it was like,
Mhm.
was I, oh, because you said something Dale, at the beginning there that I thought was amazing, that idea of God is good, so he is doing things. But then there's this micromanaging thing that us human mortal beings like to do, where we like to think, well, I definitely know what God's trying to do. So let me try to orchestrate and make this work just to make it
Yeah.
show up the, oh, and I make a big mess of it all because I'm trying to manage how God's going to do this thing. Oh boy.
So y'all talking about this, and then I'm going to
Mhm.
tie it back in with what Mike was saying about shooting. This was with a drill we did during this class that I was speaking about. So, if God's vision for us, if he's seeing the end goal, then our focus needs to be the goal, the end goal, right?
Yeah.
Sin has been called or translated as missing the mark.
Right.
So one of the drills we did, and you'll see where I'm going with this, it was called occlusive shooting. And occlusive shooting, for those that don't know what it is when you have a handgun or a rifle, whichever one you're going to do, handgun in this particular case. Some of us have a red dot sight on top. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a piece of glass essentially with a laser inside of it, basically. And you put the dot where you want the round to go and you squeeze the trigger, and that should be where the round goes, right? Here's the problem with us as humans. We like to look at the target. We like to bring the sight into alignment. Then we like to perfect what we think the alignment should look like. Then we break that shot. What occlusive shooting does is it requires you to put tape over your red dot sight. So you have a barrier between the dot and the target. And your focus cannot shift from the destination of the round. Your focus must remain on the destination. So you're focusing on the X, the bullseye of that target. You allow the gun to come out up into its proper position. And as soon as you see the flash of that dot, though it's taped over, take over your vision that you were looking at where the round was supposed to go. That's when you break the shot. And that's when that shot will almost 100% of the time land right in the bullseye.
Mm-hmm.
Only when you start micromanaging it off of your own, this is what I think it should do, this is what I think it should feel like, and you start second guessing and shifting your focus not from the target to your sight, is when you start missing the mark.
Ew.
So herein we spiritual
About to say, I had to,
class, but
That's
got
good.
to, I got to run that same experiment, and it was unbelievable how much, if your mind was taking over it more and you were overthinking it, you were always missing.
Mhm.
In the sense of you want to micromanage how it should be when you should just trust the process and realize it just flows biomechanically, whatever. If and especially if you have trained and have spent time working on the fundamentals, it should just work. Don't overcorrect it. Don't get analysis paralysis. Take the shot. And that was unbelievable to say. Like this, the people's faces were just like, no way that just happened.
Mhm.
Because everyone was trying to overcorrect. Everyone was trying to overthink it. And then when they finally broke that, it was amazing to see the light bulb of, oh, I'm actually doing it. I'm actually doing it just fine. That was so cool to see.
Wow.
so yeah, when you're in a situation and you're seeing the, through the glass darkly, if you will, through the lens darkly, like you talked about, Daniel, I'm so frustrated with this situation. Yeah, where's your focus?
Mm-hmm.
Is it on the situation or the destination?
Mm-hmm. And here's a really harsh statement that I'll make that I will then put a story behind. Our sense of self-righteousness can completely rob God of the ability to bless us.
Yep.
Well, let that sink in
And-
for a moment.
Mm-hmm. That had some heat on it. It
Yeah.
like flew by my head.
Hmm.
I got dumped
And
for that one. Oh
the-
God.
I would have
The
loved to
reason
have had
that I
that
can
fly
say
by my
that-
head. Ryan, flying by your head's one thing. It's when it hits you right between the eyeballs is another. So,
That's true. Yeah.
Oh, man.
mm.
The reason that I can say that with that much heat behind it is because it's because of a situation that I walked through during the process of getting my house, that I was praying. We were not in the situation where we could even purchase this house and put it on this piece of land. We have a mobile home. We were not in the situation, but it was something that we prayed very hard about. We knew that God was directing us to do it. He said, yes, walk forward with this and have faith in me. And so it was a faith move the whole way through. And so I started praying things. I was like, well, God, if you're doing this, if you're going to have us walk in faith, then let me just add a couple things to the list here, just for kicks and giggles. And so, but really, I wanted to be a testimony. I wanted our experience to be a testimony. And it was so much so that I started paying some things out of pocket for the house, like the septic and like the driveway, that kind of thing. And because I was trying to take just a little off the top of the mortgage. And so we get to the end, and the person that I'm purchasing the house from sends the final, the itemized list of everything and the total cost. And I'm looking at this sheet, and I'm like, this doesn't feel right. This feels like something's been double charged. And this person that I was dealing with, it was an amazing thing that the house actually got here,
Yeah.
because it was this whole crazy situation. But so I knew I was being double charged for the septic, and septics are not cheap. And so I texted her and I was like, hey, could you just double check and just make sure that you didn't include the septic charge on this mortgage, because, I already paid that out of pocket. And she texted back something very quickly, very kind of snarky remark kind of thing. And I just felt like, I think that almost anyone else in this situation would really fight this tooth and nail and be like, no, you're going to make sure that I get that money that I already paid off the top of this bill. But I just felt so strong in that moment that God sees all things and he restores all things that needs to be restored. And so it went forward, and finally, like a little bit before everything is finalized, she's like, hey, did you get my text? And so essentially what ends up happening is, instead of getting that money for the septic off the top of the mortgage, which equals almost nothing on a monthly payment, for those of you that don't know, it's very little amount. Instead of that, I got that money back in cash from her pocket. And it was enough to cover everything that I had asked God for. And it paid for our home birth of our fourth child. If I had been stuck in self-righteousness and fought that tooth and nail, rather than believing that God saw everything and ordained everything, I would have robbed him of the ability to bless me for what I asked him and what I didn't ask him for.
Mm.
Oh, man.
Mm.
Oh, man.
That's good. Wow, that's very good.
So that's
So
why.
are you saying too that self-righteousness is like essentially also tunnel vision in a way? We can get
It's
so
thinking that
focused.
we see everything so clearly, like we know what's even in front of us and what's going on. We have no idea. We really have no idea.
I can't
Right.
remember if it was Mike, if you said it before. I can't remember who it was, but we had this years ago. We were talking with there was a group of people, and I think you had likened it unto driving. I think it was, or something. Someone said something, and it might have been Mike. So I'm going to give Mike credit for this.
Oh.
That driving through the mountains, and how if you've ever driven through the mountains, sometimes it can get crazy foggy. where it doesn't matter what your light's position is, you're not seeing a thing. And it's like an act of faith and trust just to move through that, just because it's so heavy. And I think that you likened that to how Messiah was. I can't remember. Am I speaking correctly here, Mike, or is that not you?
I
Maybe
don't think it was me.
okay. I thought it was, because it was a fantastic story. I've always looked at it that way, of sometimes how you move through life. It can be that foggy and dense, and then you think you know what's supposed to be ahead, but God will just gently nudge you and say, "Hey, there's going to be a bend. Be ready for it. The bend's coming. You don't see it, but it's coming." So like that, like, oh yeah, I think I'm being double charged on something. That's God in the end. He's got it figured out. That
Well,
was
it's like-
really cool.
Yeah, it's like we can't see the end of the road. I did have something similar that happened to me like that. I was driving back from I was up in Wyoming, coming back from Saratoga to Medicine Bow with Yakov Rice, and the snow was coming down so hard. And if you've never been up in this area, the markers on the side of the road, you know how we see the markers are, you know, like car level. These are like 4 feet tall because of the amount of snow that comes down up there. And we were driving through a snowstorm to the point that all I could see was a marker. I could see the right marker, then I could see the left marker, then the right one and the left one. And I had to put my total trust in that those people that put those markers down knew what they were doing. And if I just followed the next marker, I would make it to the destination. So when we're looking through, you know, as to get back to you, Ryan, as we're wanting to see life through God's lens, what that means is not that we're going to see the end, but we're going to see clearly what our next step is. You know, the steps of the righteous man are ordered by the Lord. You know, your word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path. So to see through his lens is to sometimes is just to see my next step, believing that when I need to see the next one, he's going to reveal it to me. So it's almost a little bit of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which part exactly?
Well, you know, I'm thinking going into this, I'm thinking that to see through the lens of God is to see everything clearly. You know, that to see the end out of the beginning as he sees. So I should be able to see much more. I should be able to see farther down the road. Now sometimes it's just seeing clearly in the moment.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of to my point was, you know, the end goal, I think, for all of us is to reach the point where we stand before him and we hear, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
Absolutely.
And much like the Occlusive shooting, we have to maintain that as our focus, as our final destination. What makes the shot accurate is the motions, the fundamentals that are given to you, because you are seeing things just one step at a time. But the Bible outlines these tasks, these mandates, these ways of living for us. And then God also has the mercy to put people in our lives, like I talked about my wife and even, you know, you three gentlemen, that help be those markers along the way that you're trusting. Back to your story, Mike. And he is also faithful to answer us, usually when we call and are in difficult situations. I'll share a story recently that I had gone through, really dealing with the Father on something, really still dealing with the Father on something, speaking of houses and so forth. But I finally, at one point, to be quite vulnerable with you, had broken down pretty hard that I was really going after it. And it turned into me and God, really, or really me going at it. quite vehemently, however you pronounce that.
Mhm.
And I didn't hear anything at first. And I thought, well, with everything that I've said that I've now gotten off my chest, I was expecting maybe a lightning bolt to come through that top of that roof of that car and just zap me, you know. And I probably would have had it coming. And I waited, I think it was about 5 days. And I was in the car and I was coming back from Nashville. And I heard the voice of the Lord as clearly as could be say, not what I was expecting. He goes, why did you have to yell at me when you could have just asked me?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That broke me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, you know, as much as I've thought about this and dreamed about this, I've never actually asked him what his direction was.
Wow.
Mm.
And then I had peace.
Hmm.
Is it still frustrating sometimes in the waiting, in the yes.
Yeah.
But I know that he hears me.
Wow.
And I know that, like Mike's brought up that verse, the lamp unto my feet, you know, we might just see, you know, a lamp like that, especially in Yeshua's day, it didn't throw much light.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm.
You had just enough for the next step.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if he showed us, if he was to give us a spotlight of what's down, you know, farther down the road, it would probably scare us so much we couldn't. It would hinder our forward movement.
Yep. Yeah, if you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, do you really want to see what the valley looks like?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Do you really want to
That's
see
true.
the bear at the end? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we're about out of time. Closing thoughts, Daniel, Dave.
You want to go, Daniel, or you want to go?
Go for it, Dave. Go for it.
Okay, man. Oh, there's been so many amazing things. I mean, we looked at it from the perspective of how does God see you, and we spent a lot of time on how you see you. And I think that's the problem, is that how we see ourselves is the problem. God's got a very perfect view of how what he's got set for us, and it's extremely purpose-driven life. And I think that sometimes we can get we want to micromanage. I love that line. We want to be self-righteous in how we think our lives should be. And a lot of times we have to understand that God's got a better path laid out. And we like to compare our lives to others. So we get into this mess of life and we try to navigate and figure it out. But I would like to stress, like what Ryan said at the very end was something that I have found to be a rock when I'm in valleys. When you are going through that valley and when you're going through something that is rough, I don't care what it is. Financially, emotionally, it's usually all the above when it comes to a valley. Am I right? Like it's pretty bad. Whenever you're going through something like that, I will leave you with the little advice that I can give still that I'm figuring out this life. You want peace as much as possible. You want to find that peace. And sometimes it's a little hard to get to that peace. But if you seek it, you're going to find it. You are going to find that way. And it usually comes with an answer from the Father, not the answer you're wanting, but the answer that God knows you need in that moment. And that will follow with peace. And I don't care how bad it can get. When you have that peace, you feel like you could just go even further. It is like supercharged battery. I don't know how to describe it. It feels like, okay, you know what? If this is going to last longer, I can do longer. I can do that because I have peace and know that God's with me in this. So that's what I would leave you with as a final comment, is that fix your vision. Understand that God sees it from the past, the present, and the future. If you're going through something rough, it's because you can handle it and you can make it through. Just trust him. And that's so hard to say when everything's going good. But when it's bad, you really don't want to believe that that's true. I want you to remember, like we said, that that's the key word. remember that he does have the complete plan for your life, and it is extremely good. It's so amazing. Just trust the process.
Yeah. Daniel?
Ryan, your talking reminded me of a song. So it's my turn to quote some lyrics for once.
All right.
So this is probably like the latter half of this song. So this is God speaking. I have seen this all before. It is all too familiar. But you speaking to us, you will never see the bottom of my storehouses of love. So as you use the night to make your flight, no choice that you will make or path you will take will change my mind. Even if one day you decide you will find somewhere else to hide, I will walk your way and call your name and wait for your reply. Even if you make up in your mind you don't want to be by my side, I will leave the 99, oh, that you'd be mine. I'm going to leave behind the 99, oh, that you'd be mine. Here's the part, oh, gets me every single time. Even if you stomp and scream and huff and tell me that I'm not good enough, I'll take every swing and every blow until you know my love. Even if you beat upon my chest and tell me you don't understand, I will love you and teach you to love me again. God is very, very good to be patient with us and to welcome when we beat upon his chest and tell him we don't understand. But I think, Ryan, what you learned and what he showed you and what we're all learning and is that he would much rather prefer a daily communion.
Yes.
And that is what would bring that peace, is just that daily communication with him.
And that daily communication is what David was talking about, the fundamentals
Yes.
that cause us to be able to aim for and hit the mark in the end. But just remember this, he has plans for us, for completion and not for evil, to give us a future and a hope. So live your life on purpose. Till next week.
See you next time, guys.
See you.
Hey, guys.